Today, President Trump announced the appointment of two Long Island congressmen to the White House Joint Task Force on reopening the economy. Those are Congressman Lee Zeldin and Congressman Tom Suozzi. Joining me now is Congressman Zeldin of the 1st District. Congressman, how are you doing? Are you staying safe?
Yeah, the family is healthy, and the girls are about to be finding out that they're not going to be going to school here in a couple weeks. I think that for my two 13-year-olds at home and for their generation, it's certainly not a normal moment in time, and everybody's itching to get back to normal as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it really is kind of cabin fever. We can all, I guess, blame the governor for that 2-week extension, at least for now. Let me say congratulations. So what is the agenda of this task force?
We need to reopen our economy. We need to do it smartly. We need to do it precisely. We have to do it in a way that doesn't cause another outbreak. We need to understand that geography is different from one part of our country to the next. I was talking to one colleague from another congressional district where he has less than 50 coronavirus positives in his entire congressional district. Meanwhile, here between Suffolk and Nassau County, we have over 50,000 positive coronavirus cases. So reopening the economy in his congressional district might happen before the end of this month. For us here on Long Island, we have to figure out how to get our lives going again too, but also needing to factor in public health. Some of that aspect of getting our economy back up and running is going to be a little different, and timing might be a little bit different as well.
Yeah, your district's relatively large. I mean, it covers most of central and eastern Suffolk County. That's most of Smithtown. You've got a lot of big towns, Brookhaven, Riverhead, Southold, Southampton, East Hampton, Shelter Island. So you definitely have a large district that's being hit pretty hard right now by that. Have you talked to your fellow Congressman Tom Suozzi about this, since you're both on the same task force now?
Yeah, absolutely. The dialogue has been great with Tom Suozzi, Peter King, Kathleen Rice, even Gregory Meeks, as you start getting into some of these districts that not just overlap with Nassau, but also go into other parts of the city. We can't be Republicans or Democrats here. We have to be Long Islanders first, New Yorkers first, Americans first, not just being bipartisan, but actually being nonpartisan. We're all in this together. And we need to view whatever ideas that we have as force multipliers. We need to work together to amplify each other's messages in fighting for our small businesses and employees. Our small business employees are about half of our nation's workforce, fighting for our hospitals and our state and local governments. Again, we all have to work on this together, and that includes working closely with Tom Suozzi, as you mentioned, is also on this task force.
So, as you mentioned at the beginning, Governor Cuomo has extended the New York Pause program. That's the closing of non-essential businesses along with schools up until at least May 15th. Is that where at least the task force is going to start its beginning point, taking that lead from the governor? I'm assuming that's with the 6 other governors that are working closely with the Governor Cuomo.
Yeah, this national task force is going to be facing different timelines for different areas. And even as you look at New York, Governor Cuomo has articulated a desire to be on the same page with these half a dozen other governors from neighboring states. But even as you look at New York, downstate New York has well over 90% of the coronavirus cases throughout the entire state. So the governor who wants to have at least a regional approach around New York City, and that means not just the counties and around New York City, but even talking to Connecticut and New Jersey to align businesses reopening, schools reopening, public transit all reopening together. Who knows, maybe that will be a different timeline than upstate New York, where they're having far less cases. But that decision is one that, as far as I know, hasn't been made. I do know that the goal, even on behalf of my constituents, on behalf of Long Islanders who are part of this area that has been hit especially hard, everybody is ready to get things going as quickly as possible. And that includes ramping up the rapid testing, the antibody testing, and developing a vaccine as quickly as possible, because even that outermost date of 18 months from now, that puts us well past the entire next season this time next year. So we don't want a second outbreak. We want things to return as closely to normal as possible. It would be great if we could get a vaccine faster than that.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. Let me ask you about the emergency small business lending program, because we're told that as of today, that's run out of the $349 billion. It's run out of money. Has there been any talks on refunding that program?
Yeah, there have been a lot of talks, and actually this should be quite simple. Congress right now should put money back into the fund for the Paycheck Protection Program, as well as EIDL, Emergency Injury Disaster Loans. If you go to the SBA's website today, you'll also see that they're not taking new applications for that as well. The EIDL, up to $2 million of a loan, came into play once New York State was granted an emergency declaration for all of the counties throughout New York. And then the Paycheck Protection Program, which provides up to $10 million of assistance with a generous loan forgiveness provision. To see that money sitting empty without new loans being processed, you have small businesses, if this delay continues, that will never reopen. So Congress should not be participating in any political posturing, grandstanding, looking at this as leverage to get other items in agreement. We don't have that time. We don't have that time. With a sense of urgency, this needs to get funded today.
Okay, you're on the inside. What is the holdup right now in Congress for funding this?
Yeah, listen, as when I said that my goal here is to not just be bipartisan, but to be nonpartisan, I really want to be able to approach every level of that with this. But quite frankly, you need to get a vote scheduled by the House Speaker. You need to allow a vote that Senator McConnell wants through unanimous consent in the Senate chamber. As far as I know, there isn't any Senate Republican who would oppose that unanimous consent motion right now in the Senate. So it could get done right now, even while members are back in their home districts and state. It could get done right away. But I can't pretend to answer for the Speaker of the House as to why the vote hasn't been scheduled. My goal here isn't to be partisan, to sound partisan. We just need to get this done.
Okay. The $2.2 trillion that was passed total, this was just a portion of that stimulus money. Let me ask you a broader picture. I know it's needed. Some people say that's not even enough money, that maybe we need triple that to stimulate the economy and get us through this pandemic that we artificially created to save our lives. But where is that revenue coming from? $2 trillion is a lot of money.
Yeah, no, you can make an argument before we even fire off a $2 trillion budget appropriation that we don't even have the money to do it. And this has been an issue where we have debts and deficits at our federal level that are greatly concerning to me. I approached that phase 3 negotiation focused in on 3 components. One is ensuring that we're getting the help to our small businesses, and most importantly to the American workers who are impacted by this voluntary shutdown of our economy. 2 is getting support to our hospitals. And 3 is about getting support to our state and local governments, many of which were cash strapped going into this. But to answer your question, as far as where is the money coming from, you can make an argument that we don't have the money to do this. We just have to get our economy through this brief moment in time. And in the long run, whether it's good times or bad, whether we're healthy or we're sick, we really do need to be more responsible with our budgeting. My message to all of my colleagues in negotiating a phase 4, if your idea is unrelated to coronavirus response, then save it for a different bill on a different date for a different debate. Because as you just pointed out, we don't have the money to keep firing off $2 trillion plus bullets. And this is something that next generation, I talked about my 13-year-old daughters at the beginning of this interview, their generation, they're going to be inheriting a big mess as it was. And we don't need to make that any larger than it needs to be.
Okay. Final question here. You were instrumental in directing, it was about 500,000 masks, some N95, some surgical masks, to Suffolk County. I know the county was very appreciative of that from this federal stockpiles. You were pretty much the person who directed that to go to Suffolk County. We're hearing that nurses at least a couple of hospitals in Suffolk County, St. Catherine's of Siena and St. Charles, are still complaining that they are not only short of gowns and masks, but they're sometimes being forced to share them. So do you have any idea of where that PPE went to?
The delivery of N95 masks was just over 280,000 N95s to Suffolk, plus another 100,000 for Northwell hospitals west of Suffolk. That means that the hospitals that you just referenced and many other hospitals all throughout Suffolk County would have received from that delivery just over 14,000 N95 masks. Now, I believe St. Catherine's has the sterilization technology where you can get more than a single use out of an N95 mask by sterilizing it in between shifts. If anyone is saying that they're using an N95 mask for a second day, a third day, a fourth day, when I hear that, it better be getting sterilized in between with this new technology. There's no excuse otherwise, because the N95 masks that the county was asking for were delivered. The county had asked for 200,000 N95 masks. The county ended up getting over 280,000. I've been working closely with County Executive Steve Ballone and his team. We'll continue to get the county whatever it is that they ask for. It's a close partnership. Again, an all of government approach. But as far as I know, as far as the N95s, that distribution went, those hospitals would have received 14,040 N95s each.
Okay. Well, Congressman Zeldin, congratulations once again on your appointment to the White House Task Force on Reopening the Economy, and I wish your family all the safety and health, and I hope you stay safe and healthy yourself.
Thank you. Same to you, everyone there at the team in News 12, to your family at home.
Thanks.